Hi, this is Charmaine. I'd like to welcome you into my kitchen for one of my cooking classes. I hope I found exactly what I was looking for over there. Organic collard greens, fresh from the field. Fresh is best. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do before I get started is I'm going to make sure all my surfaces are clean. So I'm going to sterilize my sinks and all my surfaces and wash those all down. Next, I'm going to wash my hands because I've already sterilized everything else. So now it's time for me to sterilize and wash my hands. So, and the way you do that is I like to get mine up my arm as well, so that if there's any dirt or anything that may fall off, it won't go into the food. You're going to make sure you get your thumbs. You're going to get your nails. I happen to have a little brush that I can use to make sure that under my nails get done, as well as the center part of my hand. You can use, if you don't have like a nail brush, you can use something like a vegetable brush, but just make sure you just use it just for doing your hand and not your hands and your vegetables. So I like to, the palm of my hand, my wrist, and the best thing to do is not to wear any jewelry when you're cooking in the kitchen, or any bracelets or anything, because food can get trapped underneath it and then fall into the food and cross-contaminate as well. So you want to make sure you get all areas of your hand, your thumbs, between your fingers, so you want to make sure you get all of that. And then I rinse my little brush out, and then I set it where it can dry. But another thing I like to do is take a little bit more soap, and where I would have touched my sprayer to get my soap, I like to also clean the soap dispenser, because when you first touched it, your hands were dirty, and if you don't wash it off, then it's not going to do you any good. So you rinse your hands off, make sure you get up your arms, the center of your fingers here, and all of your nails, your wrist. You're going to rinse that off, and I use pretty hot water myself. And then what you're going to do is you're going to use a paper towel, or what they call a single serve, and not a cloth or anything like that, because there could be something else on that and that would cross-contaminate. So this is what you call a single serve. So you're just going to use a single serve paper towel to dry your hands off. Okay, here we can see how large some of those collard green leaves are. And if I were to put my hand there, which I do have another picture like that, and it shows that my hand actually is very tiny in comparison to the leaf itself. And these are fresh. Okay, I have some collard greens here, and I'm going to end up cooking some collard greens along with some kale, and I also have some Swiss chard. But they all have these stems going down them, but the stems will cook different than the leaves themselves. And I know when you buy it in the store, they have all this stuff all cut up together. But what I do is I take that part out because it's going to cook differently than everything else. So I take it and I cut this part off. So all the leaves, I'm going to cut that part off, and you see, then this is what you end up with. And you see how this is flimsy. This takes a long time to cook too, but not as long as the stems. So what I'll end up doing is I'll take all the leaves and I will put them together. And when I put them together, they'll be laid one on top of the other. And then I'm going to take them and then I'm going to roll them so that they'll be rolled like this. And then I start at one end, and then I cut them in strips, like little strips like this. And the reason I cut these in strips like this is because when you do it like this and you put different vegetables together, it's kind of like they all marinate, and you end up being able to taste all the flavors together, but yet you don't have one thing that's more flavorful than the other. You see how these are like all little strips now? So I'll end up cutting those in strips, and I'll cook each vegetable separately. And I'm going to take these, all these stems, and I'm going to cut these up like this. And all these will be cooked with some rice, not some rice, I'm sorry. It's going to be cooked with some garlic and onion. I have somebody who wanted some rice with them, so that's why I said rice. That was on my mind. I have to cook the rice for them. But you see how this is? So these, because this cooks differently, this is going to be cooked with onion and garlic. And then these leaves over here, they will all be cooked together with some onion, a little bit of onion, and then I will put them all together, the onion, the garlic, and all the seasonings. But each type of vegetable will be cooked separately because they all cook differently. And then that way, when I'm making another dish, I can decide which green I want, or if I want all the greens in, but I'll show you that later on. I'm going to show you another way of taking the stems off in case you just decide you don't want to keep cutting them. You can just hold the stem and you can just do it like this, and the stems will come off this way. And then what I do, and then this is what you end up with, and you're going to layer some going this way and then some going the opposite way, and then you just put them in a pile. So you see right here, here's where I have a pile. And then what I'll do is I'll take this whole pile, and then I'll take the leaves like this, and then you roll it so that you're rolling all the leaves together, and then it reduces your cutting time. But it's going to make me use my other knife this time. And then you'll be able to see, you see these are pretty tough. This particular blade is not as sharp as I'd like it. But you can see when you cut it thin like this and you cook them, so you can see how that's going to be. And you're going to do the whole bunch that you have, you're going to do them all the same way. So I'm just going to set that there. Well, I'll do it this way so I don't accidentally cut myself. But you can see how this now shreds, so that it's going to be easier for you to digest as well. And it will blend with other ingredients that you have that may be small, you know, cut small, so that it's going to give you a nice texture and a nice flavor. Okay, now I have the stems all cut up, and I just put some water in the pot. So I'm just going to, or in the frying pan, right? And now I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to end up letting these simmer and cook down. I don't have any onions in it just yet because these are going to be harder than the onions or the garlic. So I'm going to start these cooking first, and then when I get onions and garlic cut up, and this is about halfway, then I'll add that. Remember, we're not just going to cook things down, we're also looking for flavor as well as texture. So that's why I'm doing it in this order. I'm going to show you how I'm bringing it to a rapid boil. And then now that I see that it's boiling, what I'm going to do is I'll cover it back, and then I'll lower the heat and then just let it simmer, because I don't want all the water to go out, because as I'm adding the other things to it, I want it to be able to have enough moisture to make it seep into each other. And then I'll also add some spices to it as well. Okay, I decided I'm gonna cook all of these stems from all of the greens together. So what you see on top of the red ones, and those are from the rainbow Swiss chard. So I'm gonna let those go ahead and continue to cook with all the rest of them. Then here's where what I did is I put in here, is I put the rainbow Swiss chard, which is over on this side over here. This is what's over here, and then this side over here is kale. So I put that, and then I'm going to cook that. And then in the other pot, I put all the greens. So I'm going to cook them somewhat separately, but they're all going to end up being combined. I decided in the end, I will just combine them all together. Okay, now the stems, I've let those cook down. So you can see how they've all gotten a lot softer. So what I'll do at this point is I'll add like 1 bowl. This is like a large onion, and this is half of a large onion, or a medium-sized one. You can do the whole medium-sized one and add that to it. And then this here is 2 tablespoons of minced garlic. I'll add that. I'm going to add, this is about a tablespoon of Italian seasoning. I'm going to add that. And this is crushed chili peppers. That's in like a garlic sauce that I have. And then I have just about a couple of pinches I'll do here of salt. Not that much. That's all I'm going to add to that. And now we'll stir all this up and mix it together and let this cook down. And then we'll be ready to look at the greens that we have and see what those look like. Okay, now I'm going to take a look at the kale, see what that looks like. Okay, the kale looks like it's doing pretty good. Now we're going to look at the greens, and those greens are doing very well too. They're still cooking in the pot, so we'll let these keep cooking just a little bit longer. Okay, now that I've let this cook for a while, and you can see it's coming along really well, I'm going to take, this is now going to be the kale plus the Swiss chard, and I'm just going to add that to this. And I've already seasoned the kale and the Swiss chard with a little bit of Italian seasoning and a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper, black pepper. But I'm going to add it into this so that now this can merge with the flavors that we have going on in this pot. And then once I cook this for maybe about another 10-15 minutes, then I will add it to the bigger pot with the collard greens in it. Now you can see this is the pot. This pot here has all the greens in it, and this pot over here has all the other stuff that I made, and I'm going to add all of that together now. I'm just going to add it all in one pot. So put that all in there, and then I'm going to let this all cook together. Now notice I didn't use any meat, I didn't use any oil, and the reason I didn't is because I'm making this as though it's 100% plant-based, so there's no oil, no sugar, no meats or anything. However, if a person wants meat, which I do have a client who would want that, then what I do is I cook the meat separately, and then I combine this with that. So this way, a person who's plant-based or vegan or vegetarian, they'll be able to eat this. And I can make other dishes from it and make it to whatever I need to do. So now I have my basic greens made, and then I can doctor them up to however I want them. So you can see how everything is here. And then the liquid, I have more liquid than I need. So what I'll do with the liquid is I'll use some of the liquid, which is in the South they call the liquid pot liquor, because you can see here the greens are done, and what I did is I topped them with a little bit of red bell pepper and cilantro, and I left the bell pepper uncooked because that's high in vitamin C, so I wanted to make sure that it wasn't cooked out and you'd get all the nutrients that you could from eating the greens. If you wanted to eat them by themselves or you wanted to add it into something else, you're going to get all the nutrients that you need to get from it. Here's the recipe, and the recipe that I said earlier, it's 1 bunch of collard greens, 1 bunch of Swiss chard, 1 bunch of kale, and you chop all of that up like I illustrated, and then you're going to do 1 medium onion, 2 tablespoons of minced garlic, 1 tablespoon of Italian or vegetable seasoning, whichever one you prefer, 2 teaspoons of garlic, that's crushed garlic. You can usually buy that in a jar in the store, and it's like almost like a chili pepper. You usually find it in the Asian section. And then you're going to do salt and pepper to taste. Thank you so much for joining me. We look forward to seeing you virtually again next week and at one of our resource centers as soon as we can. Until then, stay active, healthy, and informed. Here's a message for you that I'd like to share with you. All information, content, and material of this video is for informational purposes only and are not intended to serve as a substitute for the consultation, diagnosis, and/or medical treatment of a qualified physician or healthcare provider. The information contained on this video is compiled from a variety of sources and is not considered complete. Information is subject to change without notice. If you have a medical emergency, call 911 or your doctor immediately. And for the credits, all credits for the video, narration, editing of this particular video production is done by Charmaine Vega, which is Mama Vega Enterprises. And again, I want to thank you for watching.